But I just want to get a little insight, though, into sort of the way diplomacy works here with the Trump administration. Just play a little bit of Anthony Albanese a few moments ago.
Look, I've had 2 constructive discussions with President Trump. The way that international diplomacy works is that people have discussions at the diplomatic level, and then people come together when there is a solution.
So that was Anthony Albanese earlier today, but people have said here, I've heard it said that really he's made a big mistake by leaving it too late, that he should have been trying to develop a relationship with the Trump campaign even before the election. Would that be a fair criticism?
Yeah, James, that's the first time I've heard that clip. That's a fundamental misunderstanding of how international diplomacy works with Donald Trump. That's the textbook. What he's really saying there is there's supposed to be back-channel discussions amongst lower-level people, and then once you get close to an agreement, the principals come in to seal the deal. And maybe that is the textbook. That's not Donald Trump. Donald Trump wants to work with people directly. So the simple fact that Anthony Albanese hasn't been willing to sort of reach out beyond just those 2 phone calls and talk directly with Donald Trump probably is hamstringing their relationship.
Yeah, fair enough. Look, I think that's about right. We know how much Trump values that personal relationship. Speaking of personal relationships, I want to talk about this other big story of the week, which is the leak of the Houthi strike plans on that Signal chat group. Now, that was reported by The Atlantic's editor-in-chief Jeffrey Goldberg. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has downplayed the leak, while President Trump came out yesterday saying that this was the result of a media witch hunt. Now, what have you made from this? I said earlier in the show that, yes, it's a big deal, but it's maybe not the murder charge that some of the left media have been trying to pin on the Trump administration here.
Yeah, James, this one hits pretty close to home because I went through something similar to this when I was chief of staff. People wanted to text a lot in the White House, and there's certain restrictions on texting in the White House because of various rules regarding the preservation of documents and correspondence within the White House, the Presidential Records Act. So I really had to sort of come down on people and limit the use of texts. This is a technical violation. There's no question about it. It's a mistake. There's no question about it. They should not be using this particular app, period, end of story. But I looked at the texts, James, and I saw nothing of real world-ending import. So I get the fact the media wants to blow it out of proportion. A lot of the media in my country are blowing it out of proportion. And is it a problem that needs to be fixed? Yes. But it is not the type of thing that you're hearing about over here, that somehow it's going to take down the government or somehow we gave all sorts of secrets to our enemies. That's simply not the case. This was a technical violation. It needs to be fixed, but it's not that big a deal at the end of the day.
Yeah, and don't you find it a little bit rich, Mick, that, you know, the same people are saying, oh, heads have to roll for this, and there need to be resignations and firings and God knows what else. You know, when there was the failed pullout from Afghanistan and 13 American servicemen died, there was none of that, and that was much more consequential.
Yeah, James, it's exactly what I was thinking about. Look, this is one of those things that they should take as a learning experience. This is why we don't use texting. This is why we don't use Signal. These types of things can happen. And oh my goodness, this could have been a problem if we had talked about something very important. But they had not talked about anything specific, anything. I don't think there's anything that's confidential in the information that I've seen, at least. So hopefully they'll learn from this and not make the same mistake again.
Yeah, now, Mick, I want to ask, too, I know it's very early to be thinking about the midterm elections, but this story here out of Pennsylvania, potential early warning sign for the Republicans. Pennsylvania Democrat James Morrow won an open Pennsylvania state seat in a special by-election. Now, some people are saying this could be a big warning sign to the Trump administration, the Republicans going into next year's midterms. It was in a very comfortably pro-Trump district. What did you make of that result? Should we take something from it? Is it a warning sign, or is it just kind of a weird outlier in some by-election in the middle of Pennsylvania?
Yeah, you absolutely look at it, but to your point, whether or not it's an outlier in a by-election, you don't know yet, James. You have to see 2 or 3 of these things. Granted, Republicans would have wanted to win this seat, but it's hard with a sample size of 1 to know if you've got a trend. It could be this particular person was very popular. It could be somebody who's been deeply ingrained in the community. It could be a special sort of one-off type of thing. It doesn't mean that the Republicans are in trouble, but it does mean they're going to be paying extra close attention to it. I did notice also this morning that there's word out of Washington, D.C. that Elise Stefanik will be asked not to take the position at the UN because they want her to stay in the House. You'd be looking for sort of rumblings from the Republicans saying to themselves, maybe we will have some difficulty going to the midterms. I happen to think, James, they're going to do very well. I talked to some Democrat pollsters who said that they thought the Republicans might pick up seats in the midterms, in large part because there's so many voters out there who might not like Donald Trump, but like that he's doing something. They're sick of electing politicians who say they're going to do one thing and then they do nothing, and that actually this middle-of-the-road, unaffiliated voter support for Trump and his party right now is as good as it was back in November. So we watch this. This is a data point. There's no question, but there'll be many more between now and November of 2026.
Yeah, no, I think you're right there about that man of action thing being very much still in Trump's favor. But before I let you go, I want to talk about this great piece you wrote for The Hill this week, thehill.com. You said that one of the biggest things the Trump administration needs to get on top of is online fraudsters. You said that Americans have lost $12.5 billion, but probably more. But you also mentioned how the Biden administration turned consumer protection authorities into tools in its culture war against the right. Tell us about this, and what does the Trump administration need to do here?
Yeah, I wrote the piece because a number jumped out at me that online fraud, international online fraud against Americans will be more than $12 billion this year. It was roughly $1 billion when I ran the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, back in 2017, 2018. This is an entity that could have been used to help consumers against online fraud. And Joe Biden instead chose to use it to sort of pursue his social agenda, going after banks for not lending to illegal immigrants, for example. There's all sorts of things the government can be doing to help these people protect themselves against online fraud. And $12.5 billion at least stolen from Americans is just as important as closing a steel plant. So I hope the Trump administration is able to sort of undo some of the mistakes the Biden team has done and protect against international online fraud as much as they're protecting against countries who send us illegal immigrants or have high tariffs on our goods.
That's a great point, Mick Mulvaney. Thanks so much for joining me, and enjoy the delights of Adelaide.